Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. Welcome in. There's Lonnie. It's nice to see a lot of friends on Sunday morning, Over here, it's that sort of feeling of autumn that's eternal until it isn't. And it's gold and blue. It's the sort of thing, oh, I remember autumn now, the colors, everything gradually falling apart, but not quite admitting to it. The koan today, there's a sequence of a couple of koans, but this koan goes, the gist of it is, say something upside down. Attend to the reality that is upside down. So we have all this, this koan, say something upside down, is from Cloudgate, the great Yunmen, who has more koans than anyone else in the Blue Cliff record, because the person who collected the Blue Cliff record was his maybe grandchild in the Dharma. And so, and plus, he was amazing. So there is that. And I was thinking of upside down things. That upside down things sort of are the things that make you realize you've been seeing life a certain way, and now you're seeing, and it wasn't correct. It wasn't necessarily an evil thing, but weird things go and happen, man. And so I'll read you this poem. Where is it? This is William Stafford, an introduction to some poems. Look, no one ever promised for sure that we would sing. We have decided to moan. In a strange dance that we don't understand till we do it, we have to carry on. Just as in sleep you have to dream the exact dream to round out your life. So we have to live that dream into stories and hold them close at you, close at the edge we share to be right. We find it an awful thing to meet people, serious or not, who have turned into vacant, effective people, so far lost that they won't believe their own feelings enough to follow them out. So far lost they won't believe their own feelings enough to follow them out. Linji would say that they won't take the position of host. The authentic is a line from one thing along to the next. It interests us. Strangely, it relates to what works, but it's not quite the same. It never swerves for revenge, or profit, or fame. It holds together something more than the world, this line. And we are your wavery efforts at following it. Are you coming? Good. Now it is time. William Stafford was a great follower of that wavy, authentic line. Here's something that I thought was amusing, and basically it's about exploding cliches, I think. This is a Jean Cocteau story, the great French troublemaker. With the young Duke of Kent and his sisters, I was taken to see a famous illusionist in a London music hall. The number ends with some nudity and the nanny doesn't know what to do. As they leave, she ventures to ask, "How did your Highness enjoy the performance?" "I'm scared." "Why, your Highness?" Mama told me if I looked at naked women, I'd turn to stone, and it's starting. It's a very English sort of joke. And this is another English sort of joke I was remembering when I was, I don't know, 16 or something, and I happened to be with a group of kids who went out to see somebody very rich in Tasmania, and it was sort of some sort of vague royal connections, the way colonials sometimes had. And he came in driving a Rolls Royce across the paddock with a sheep in the back seat, where he was going to get rescuing a sick sheep. And I never thought that people behaved that way. It was very exciting to me. I thought, oh, this frees everybody. And uh, and all these nutty things that happen, like a friend of ours who she was selling a house in Ojai, and the real estate agent said there are too many books, and she said, "Well, you know, books are us," and went off to where it was she was going. And when she came back, the real estate agent had color coordinated all the spines of the books. So she couldn't find anything because she's looking for a book one of her friends wrote, you know. But they were all like, here's the blues and here's the soft blues and here's this is obviously somebody who had never read a book. And it's rather wonderful. And yeah. And that story about driving a Rolls across a paddock occurs in other places. My friend Michael Katz, who is English and knew a member of somebody very close to the royal family because his father was an architect who built things for them. But and he remembers going out to see this friend of the family where his mother took, and he took shelter. His mother took shelter during the war, and he did too, out in the country, so they wouldn't get bombed. And these people welcomed them in, and then they jumped in. It was a Bentley, not a Rolls. They jumped in this old luxury car, and he just drove across the paddocks to call the cattle. So, and he had a horn on the car that sounded like a bull, and all the cows would gather around and look at him. They thought the bull had arrived. So, upside down, upside down. And I want to tell you this story, and it just because it seems very touching to me. There's a student who, after studying the precepts and scriptures, he suffered a grave illness. And thus he realized the futility of attempting to resolve the problem of the world, the problem of suffering and dreaming, the dream nature of the world, through words. He visited several masters and was praised everywhere as a great vessel of the Dharma. He finally came to Wuzu Fayan of the Yangtze line of Linji. When Fayan refused to sanction his understanding, this was Yuan Wu, great Yuan Wu, the guy who commented on the Blue Cliff record. Yuan Wu left in a huff. You don't understand that I understand. It's kind of nice. And then Fayan, as he left and was stepping out the door, Fayan called, "Remember me when you were sick with fever." A great line. And soon afterwards, in a monastery on a mountain where he was traveling, Yuan Wu did in fact become gravely ill, and upon recovery returned to study under Fayan. Fayan saw him come in and smiled and said, "Oh," and immediately made him his attendant, a position of honor. He said, "Okay, welcome. Come, sit beside me." And after years of training, he became Fayan's Dharma heir. So remember me when you are sick with fever. And I think that's a good case where he didn't believe his own explanation. His teacher was being annoying. His teacher was just trying to be accurate. When he said, no, you don't understand, he's not insulting him. He's just, as I said, trying to be accurate. Like William Stafford said, it's a line that goes between one thing and another. And about this koan, Yuan Wu said there are three mysteries: the mystery within the essence, the mystery within the phrase, and the mystery within the mystery. I don't know what you want to do with that, but people always said that Yunmen's sayings contained, like a vessel that contained all this rich things inside them. So there. So I think this is kind of, his koan is like, how do you meet your predicament? That if you don't meet your predicament, you can't be defeated, and then you can't go to another level, a deeper level. So that the beauty really of having a predicament, the beauty of having difficulty. I was talking to Alison Atwell about the way the universe strips our meaning from us sometimes, and what a good thing that can be. So, and then she came up with a couple of things. One was a story from Garcia Marquez, but we'd have to read you the whole novel for you to really understand it. So we decided she would tell you a story from her own experience. So.
Yeah, well, when John asked me, as he often does, a couple of days before the program, he'll throw the koan out into the room and he'll say, "What do you think?" And a memory immediately came into my mind, and it happened almost a quarter of a century ago, when I had been I'd fallen in love with someone a few years after my divorce, and I was deeply, passionately in love with this person. We'd been together a few years. Things had not started to go south yet. We were sort of in the honeymoon period. And we were invited to a very elegant and fancy fundraiser at my mother's house, where they had, my mother's partner at the time had a couple of, I don't know, maybe 5 acres in Montecito, where he was a collector of cycads. So he had one of the world's largest collections of cycads. So people would come, botanists and various people would come to see his garden. And so they had a garden party, and it was a fundraiser for one of my mother's many projects to save the world. And I can't remember which organization it was for, but they had, beautiful catered food. It was during the day. There were hundreds of people there. And I remember there was a string quartet playing classical music. So I was wandering around the party, and I was there with my dazzling boyfriend, my boyfriend I was dazzled by. And I turned and looked, and I saw him about maybe 100 feet away talking to someone. And he was wearing a kind of rayon printed shirt and some Italian khaki pants from Fascianab, I think is the brand, the sort of Tony brand. And all of a sudden, I saw him kind of as if I didn't know him. and he looked suddenly, kind of chubby and a little, the clothes didn't quite fit him right, and he was completely ordinary and stripped of any of the dazzle, and in a way, like the glow of the gold leaf behind me. It was completely gone, and it was so kind of shocking to just see him as a person without my, I think, to see turned upside down, and I could barely bear the way it made me feel. Oh, he's just an ordinary person like everyone else at the party. And it wasn't that it was the beginning of the end of the relationship. It was more like there was more possible now in the relationship, because the everything that had been seen as true was turned upside down, thrown overboard, and and then here was the ordinary life. Um, so I guess, what do I want to say about that? That our problems and the things, both in the things that we were think we can't bear to have happen, or in this case, it was the thing that I felt I absolutely had to have and maintain in some way, this relationship. That the world is larger and stranger than my ideas of it, and there's a whole lot more room in that wider view. So that's it.
Thank you. Disillusionment. A disillusionment can lead to some deeper thing. It's very much a feature of being young, and well, I suppose you weren't that young then, but being young and in love is, at some stage, it was, oh, I'm making this up, So, well, the universe is making it up. And I had a couple of things here. I woke up in my mind. I woke up with. I got on my phone and it had thrown up a couple of messages, draft emails that I'd never sent from about 6 years ago, and they were both to dead people. People like, one was Corey Hitchcock, and I was sending the following poem. If I can, asking the apricot tree. I guess we were we had a nice little online mag called Uncertainty Club that we just didn't have the personnel to keep. It was just Corey and I after a while, but it was fun, and I still haven't lost the idea we might start again. It's called Asking the Apricot Tree. At dawn, awake, I asked the apricot tree, "Did you dream last night?" I did. I dreamed leaves and the moon. I dreamed I flew. So that's the poem that turned up today. And here's another this morning when I opened my phone. And here are two others. This is above Fort Bragg. The sea fog cut off the sight of the ocean and not the sound. At the edge of the visible, 3 vultures sat on fence posts, looking funereal. Why so doleful, vultures? Dry your wings, philosophize. Surely something will die soon. We like those country kind of hopes, You can hope for something to die. And here's the other kind of odd thing about autumn is that a quiet, overcast, and inward day, I'm becoming a root vegetable. So, there you are. And here's a thing. This is probably the last thing I want to read right now before we go and sit a bit more. There's a great Bill Murray, who was, you probably know who he is. Anyway, this appears in an oral history of Saturday Night Live, and about the last time he saw Gilda Radner, and Gilda was married to Gene Wilder and moved away. None of us saw her anymore. There was one good thing. Lorraine Yunmen had a party one night, a great party at her house, and I ended up being the disc jockey. This is Bill Murray talking. She had 45s, and not that many, so you really had to work the music end of it. There was a collection of the funniest people in the world at this party. The whole Monty Python group was there, most of us from the show, a lot of other funny people, and Gilda. And Gilda showed up. She already had cancer and gone into remission and then had it again, I guess. Anyway, she was slim. We hadn't seen her in a long time, and she started doing, "I've got to go." And she was going to leave, and I was like, going to leave? It felt like she was really going to leave forever. So we started carrying her around in the way we could only do with her. We carried her up and down the stairs around the house repeatedly for a long time until I was exhausted. Then Danny Aykroyd did it for a while. Then I did it again. We just kept carrying her. We did it in teams. We kept carrying her around, but upside down, every which way, over your shoulder and under your arm, carrying her like luggage. And that went on for more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half, just carrying her around and saying, "She's leaving. This could be it. Now, come on, this could be the last time we see her. Gilda's leaving. Hello." We worked all aspects of it, but it started with just, "She's leaving. I don't know if you've said goodbye to her." And we said goodbye to the same people 10, 20 times, And because these people were very funny, each person we'd drag her up to would just do 5 minutes on her, with Gilda upside down in this sort of tortured position, which she absolutely loved. She was laughing so hard we could have lost her right then and there. It was one of the best parties I've been to in my life. I'll always remember it. It was the last time I saw her. So upside down, the way to truly meet life. One of my early mentors I don't know what he was mentoring, but he was a psychiatrist. And he thought of psychiatry ecologically. So if there was a kid in trouble, he'd bring the whole family in. It was in Hawaii, so there'd be like 16 people, and then the cousin's girlfriend and things like that. And it was sort of rather wonderful. But so he would work with, hospitals, and later on I worked with medical systems out of that impulse. But he would work with hospitals and police departments and things like that. And he had a great story about he was working in the San Francisco Police Department, and some young person just stood out on a ledge in a high building and was threatening to jump. And a cop pulled a gun and pointed it at him and said, "If you jump, I'll shoot." and the person climbed back through the window to safety. So that seemed like, that's it. Yes, that's it. I think I'd like to call on a couple of people now. Marie Howe, it's always a pity not to take advantage of you when you're here. So, do you have anything you want to say?
John, did I unmute?
You did. Good
thanks.
job.
Well, thanks.
Done.
I'm in California, actually, in Santa Cruz, about to teach. And I'm in someone's backyard here that it's like a paradise. And first of all, if you jump, I'll shoot. It's just, I'm taking that with me for the rest of my life. If you jump, I'll shoot. I love it. There's this hilarious Instagram of a little kid with 3 German shepherds, and she's a tiny little toddler, and she goes, pow, pow. And all 3 dogs somehow have been trained to fall down and play dead. the funniest thing in the whole world. It's sort of like if you jump, I'll shoot, because she just goes pow, and they all fall over. I love those dogs. Sitting here with the butterflies and the flowers, listening to the silence. I loved what you said about every noise in the silence is the silence. And, I heard crows, I heard dogs barking, I heard there's chickens here. I heard my friend who's planting garlic. I was closing my eyes. I knew it was her tromping by her step. And I just felt so wonderful to remember that that by doing nothing, a lot gets done. And I'm just very grateful for that today, John. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, Marie. Okay, Tess Beasley, you want to say anything?
The line that keeps sticking with me, even from the thing you put out this week, is not believing our own explanations. Wow. And I was remembering during the sit, well, that just seems important all the time, but I was remembering during the sit how when I was about 20 and got to do this internship out in Petaluma, actually, and was doing all these courses, and one particular course, the leader, had asked me to step up a little bit more or show myself a little bit more. And somehow, midway through the weekend workshop, he just put me on the spot and said, you've dishonored my request. This was like in front of 40 people or something. And I felt completely, I had lots of good reasons. I had good explanations. I was coming down with something, and I was, I started into my very earnest explanations. And he just said in front of everyone, I hear that as horseshit. And what was so wonderful about it was that, it didn't feel very wonderful at the time, but I didn't have any alternate. It threw me back onto my uncertainty because I really had believed all of my explanations. And so it put me, I thought, well, I could just think, he's full of horseshit and be defensive and, but instead I was more curious about what's he seeing that I'm avoiding or unwilling to risk or, not willing to put myself in. And it feels like those moments of not believing one's explanations always throw me back on uncertainty in such an interesting way that I have a theory that, this much driving or this much sleep or this much of anything, is good or not good or something like that. And it proves untrue so often. And so then I think, well, maybe I just don't have any idea what's going on, actually. And there are momentary truths that roll through, but I don't have to really hold tight to them. So that's what I got.
There's a whole thing about defensiveness that happens when we're defensive, I guess. And every now, if you're a Zen teacher, every now and again you get a letter from an old student who you may or may not remember well, accusing you of like destroying their universe. It's just part of the job. You probably haven't got those yet, but or maybe you're not as good at destroying people's universes. And anyway, somebody sent one the other day to me and to John Sutherland and to a few other people, and it's from stuff from 25 years ago, and I didn't know the guy very well, and it's not really to do with me, but it was rather funny, and I noticed like it was great not to have to say I didn't do those things, but it was like, oh well, you think I did that, it's great, and so there's something nice about not being defensive. So I am an axe murderer. I did ruin your life, that sort of thing. So there's a tremendous freedom in not being defensive, and thinking, just accepting the flow of the Tao in that way. Thank you, Tess. Angela Rockall, you're here somewhere. I've got to work out how to A, find you, and B, ask you to unmute. There we are. Wasn't so hard.
Hello. I'm having a little tussle with this latest laptop, which has got a camera that it's full daylight here, but the camera has decided that
It's dark.
it's not going to work unless I've got full, not just illumination, but a proper subject. And I'm telling it no.
You can just say things in the darkness. It's rather wonderful.
That's right. That's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the upside downness, I've actually been thinking a lot lately about Jung's idea of the number one and the number two voices, and that he first experienced with his mother. So her number one voice was this kind of conventional, friendly, warm-hearted person, but every now and then another voice would emerge. And I remember feeling tremendous relief when I came across that information, because it was exactly how I experienced my mother as a child. There was this kind of feeling of great oppression in the house, which, of course, as a small child, I couldn't have named that. It was just the air we breathed, the water we swam in. But every now and then, so it would be avoiding conflict. It would be not losing your temper. It was this great constraint. But every now and then, when she felt like she had absolutely no option, this other tremendous voice would emerge that was usually full of rage and disappointment and all of that. And I was always horrified by it, but also absolutely thrilled, because it was this life coming out of the silence. And so I could recognize it as truth. It was her truth.
Well,
And
also it's in us. You
yes.
have a voice like that. I have a voice like that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You know that this nice Zen master, but don't piss me off. So that sort of thing. We all have the shadow voice.
Yeah.
It's rather wonderful.
So it was kind of like my first experience of a turning word.
There we are. Yeah, it's like that's like the Stafford thing about the integrity, is that line that you notice in things, and it's part of that. Mm. Thank you, Angela.
Thanks.
Say hello to Tasmania in the Southern Hemisphere.
I will.
Michelle Riddle.
The thing that has been coming up for me, I don't know, this morning and around this, has been one of the, I have a strong feeling inside of me, somehow that I really should have everything together and accomplish an enormous amount, be one of these vacant, effective people, where somehow my house should always be clean, the toilet should be clean, I should have, my clothes ironed, everybody should be happy, I should make homemade food and be healthy and get extra, all those things. I mean, it's like, I'm not, I know I'm not alone in this, but it's like, I get up every day with like 15,000 times more things to do in my mind than I'm capable of doing. And if I were to hew to, I don't know, the messages of like acceptability all the time, I would be dead. So what I find myself doing, what I notice, I just keep saying yes to impossible things. I say, yes, I'm going to do that, when it absolutely cannot fit into then this other picture of myself and everything being all together. And then the challenge is, then not to make myself wrong. Like that is then what are the things that I keep wanting to say yes to, and say, oh, that's my life. That's it. And it's not what I didn't get done and what I didn't do, but it's what I did do. And somehow, like that's it. That's what I'm going to get at the end of my life. And right now in every moment. So I don't know. It sounds so simple, but it's one of my things. I gotta say, yeah, this is my life. And in my life, one thing, there is a tree in my front yard that in the fall, it dresses up in the brightest red you've ever seen. It's like, it's really big and it's uncapturable with a camera. If you stand near it, the energy just like pours out of this tree. And anyway, I've now been able to see it for about 3 falls, and it shocks me every time. It's absolutely marvelous. So I wish
Thank
I
you.
could. Yeah.
John Joseph. Upside
I
down.
love all these stories. Yeah, I don't know. It made me think of how do you live when your world goes upside down? And the stories remind me of like 25 years ago myself when I was in the corporate world and I was flying pretty high and I was much in demand and I'd go to Boston and there'd be 11 meetings in a day set up for me, and I'd get back to my office, a big stack of message. People wanted to call me and stuff like that, and so then I left that world, and because it was just too much, and I wanted to see my kids grow up, and I wanted to get more engaged, in my Zen practice. So we, my father-in-law and I, we decided to develop a small business, and of selling wine, very small. And they developed, I developed a network of distributors, and a guy from North Carolina says, "Come on out, and we'll sell a bunch of wine." And so I said, "Okay." And I've done this. I've done these marketing trips before, all these fancy hotels and stuff like that. And I fly out, and he picks me up in Raleigh, I think it was, and we go to a wine shop, and the guy says, "Go to the back room, and I'll be back there shortly." So I go to the back room, and it's an absolute dump. There's all these dirty glasses and half bottles of wine, and it's so crowded you almost can't even fit in it. And the guy keeps me waiting back there for a half hour, and then he finally comes and he says, "Okay, I only have a minute." And I pour him a little wine. I give him my little song and dance, and he swirls it in his mouth, as you've seen. He spits it in a bucket. He says, "Okay, I'll take 6 bottles." and my whole trip to North Carolina was to sell 6 bottles of wine. But I walked out of that shop, and I thought, who am I? I mean, who am I right now? And it was a different it was a different reality. It's a different world, and I felt like how Allison said. In some ways, I felt more free, where I had more possibilities, and that kind of started me on I don't know, maybe my latest cycle of self-inquiry. So.
Thank you, John. That's wonderful. Okay. Just for a moment to feel. It was wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be us. What a strange thing to be alive. I wasn't expecting it when it happened. All we're doing really is we put ourselves on the path and we put ourselves in the Tao. And the Tao carries us and flows around us and over us and under us. And little by little, we may notice we've been transformed. That's what we're doing.